I've been a big admirer of Che Guevara. I've studied his life. He was a principled man, an honest man, and he fought for the cause and ultimately died for the cause in Bolivia in 1967. Now, I could not emotionally watch the entire interview between Felix Rodriguez, who was CIA asset, not agent at the time, because he wasn't a U.S. citizen yet.
Correct.
But when they sent Felix Rodriguez, who's a Cuban national, to Bolivia, working for the U.S. government to facilitate the murder of Che Guevara, he got out. He stole Che's watch, which he still has.
Yes.
And so I see this guy's shameless. I can only watch about half of the interview. I'm sure a lot of what he was saying were lies or half the truth. This was an interview he did about a year ago with Tucker Carlson. And so I think Tucker Carlson back then still had the show on Fox. But anyways, here's my question. What do you think really happened in regards to the CIA's involvement? I know this is before your time, but, just general knowledge you might have, the CIA's involvement in Che's assassination.
This is interesting.
The CIA was 1,000% responsible for Che's assassination. People have made post-agency careers bragging about their ties to the assassination plan. And you're right, Felix Rodriguez stole Che's watch. There were rumors that Felix Rodriguez took one of his fingers. I don't know if that's true. I hope it's not true.
Well, that could be because they cut Che's hands off to identify him. They sent his hands to Argentina to get the fingerprints, and those hands, they said, ended up like a Bolivian agent working for the Cubans.
Yes,
got to Argentina and smuggled those hands out and sent them back to Cuba. And then later on, they found Che's body and had it buried in Santa Clara in Cuba.
That's right.
The biggest thing I haven't heard, that's interesting. What I did hear, though, is a couple of years later in Chile, Pinochet, there was a very famous Chilean singer who was a leftist and friends with Allende, who was overthrown by the CIA. This singer, they actually cut his hands off when he was still alive. They tortured him to death in the stadium or below the stadium, where they held a lot of the political prisoners. And they called that the Latin America 9/11 because that happened on 9/11 in 1973. Right. Which, of course, is not the first CIA coup, right? You had Guatemala.
You're going back to going back to the Italian election of 1948. That was the first CIA covert action program, and that was just soft. They gave $150,000 to the Christian Democratic Party, and used it to buy reporters to write articles that were anti-communist, so that the Communist Party would lose that election. It was the very first CIA covert action program. It's all been declassified. You can read it. You can read the original source documents at the National Security Archives.
They were helping former fascists get back in power in Italy because they were worried that the left was going to take over, and Greece as well, right? Not just Italy.
And Greece as well. That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And that kind of makes sense because it makes sense that Italy would be first because if you're trying to crush communism, Italy had one of the most powerfulest communist parties. Yeah,
one of the most prominent left voices was an Italian. He was imprisoned and later died, but Mussolini, Gramsci. There you go.
Yeah, very, very interesting.